Welcome everyone on Brian of Gambling.com, and I got to get rid of that little extra
Welcome
sound.
everyone on Brian of Gambling.com, and I got to get rid of that little extra. Welcome everyone on.
There we go. Well, it's been a big morning, and that obviously sums it up. But anyway, John Ryan for PredictivePlaybook.com and Gambling.com, and I have my regular guys with me here. The Iceman, Jesse Schule, who masquerades in yellow tight-fitting suits, by the way, Chad. It's yellow like your LSU hat. It's appalling. But he looks like a pretty big dude, so he could take me, but I could definitely run faster than him. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, folks that are in, you got to go to his timeline and see this bozo pretending to come off of a bench press. And oh man. I mean, but he looks strong. But I mean, the hairdo is like it's pretty wacky. I mean, I would do drug testing if you worked for me. We work together. I guess we should probably do mutual drug testing. To
coming
make
off
sure
the
that
top
we're
rope.
safe. Given the events of the Boston Celtics, we can never be too safe. But I still don't get what's going on with Boston, but this is a football show, and we can talk about that another time. So let's start with the early games, the noon games. Obviously, Jesse loves Penn State today. I'm sure he does. I'm actually laying off that entirely. If in-game strategy, if down to 22.5 points from the current 28, I would be tempted for a little PT bet. But other than that, I'm not playing that game at all. On the early cards, we have Maryland against number 4 Michigan. Let's start with that one because I don't have that as a game premium card, but it is a game that I think has the potential for an upset over number 4 Michigan. I think Michigan's a little bit maybe overranked. I mean, somebody had a Notre Dame spot in the overranked business, and I think Michigan here. But what do you guys think? And we'll start with Jesse, see what he has on this game, if anything.
Well, it's pretty clear that Michigan hasn't played anybody, so it's the first time they're really going to be tested, perhaps. And even the line doesn't even indicate that they're even going to be tested, really. But we'll find out how real they are, perhaps today. As much as they haven't played anybody, I'm not about to start doubting them that much that I think that Maryland's going to win. Maryland doesn't show me anything to suggest that they're going to pull off the upset here today. Not in my mind, anyways.
Yeah, the line could be saying that Maryland's the one that's overrated. But as you guys know, I like saying there's been 310 underdogs of 17 or more points that have actually won the game outright since 1989, and 67 of those have occurred in the last 3 seasons. Of course, I'm striking out the COVID year, so it's actually over the last 4 seasons. This is obviously 17 points, and that's why it caught my eye because we didn't have any last week, and to have to keep that pace up of 60 to 70 of these big time dogs that pull off the upset. I think there's one today on the call somewhere, but it's probably not this one. What do you think, Chad?
I mean, to the point that you made about Michigan joining the or taking that spot as the overranked team, I like. Look, you know me. I'm an SEC guy, okay, and all you have to do is look at the record of the last 20 years to see that it's not just being a homer or being biased to what's close to you to say that the SEC has absolutely dominated college football in the last 20 years. Like the number of national champions. And the other thing is too, it's not just that there have been several national championships and they've all been won by Alabama. No, you got Auburn mixed in there, LSU mixed in there, Florida, and now Georgia has joined the ranks as well. So I look at this and I say, okay, just like with Notre Dame earlier in the year, I think there's a tendency to hype things up to keep a team like Michigan, as long as they're undefeated, in the top 5, so that there's some interest beyond just Ohio State in the Big Ten. I don't know that Michigan, if everything else were equal, I don't know that Michigan is a top 10 team. And I could see, I know you've done this, like this is one of those recurring trends, that there's these big dogs that find a way to win. I don't know how often that happens on the road, though, is the only thing. You're still, now it's an early game, so it's not as hype of an atmosphere as it would be if it were a night game or even an afternoon game. And Maryland going on the road to try to pull that upset, I think, is a little bit of a challenge. But I could definitely see it. I could see this being played a little closer than normal, because maybe Michigan comes and they don't necessarily have that edge that they need, and it could be closer than maybe people expect. So I kind of like Maryland maybe to cover this number. I wouldn't put a whole lot of money on this. I just don't feel good about it in general. But I think the upset may be a little too much to ask on the road for Maryland.
Yeah, I agree. So now we all agree that this isn't the upset. This is probably the one that
It probably is.
money line.
I think we should cheer for Michigan, because I think we all agree that there's going to be a spot to go against Michigan. If they continue to be overrated, there's going to be a spot. And if we don't find the spot, if we don't think this week is that spot, then it's in our best interest for Michigan to continue to roll, get this win by at least double digits, if not cover, and then, hit them in a couple of weeks when they're playing a Penn State or an Ohio State, and it's the line's less than a touchdown, and you want to go against them because they haven't really beaten anybody. They haven't played anybody yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I can hear the dogs, in the background is definitely disagreeing with us.
That's
I don't know. My dog is always betting the underdog for some reason. I never figured that one out.
My apologies. The dogs are going crazy right now. So.
Oh no, it's all good. I mean, this is a human interest show. I mean, when you click it down.
I'm wondering if you're right, that maybe they're trying to speak up. They're saying, no, you guys are missing it. This is the one. Bet the dog. Bet the dog. They're fighting for Maryland here. Shoot.
I don't know if you can trust dogs though, because they're a little they're a little biased toward the dog.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. They're always gonna speak up.
Well, I don't trust dogs that are nicknamed the Commanders, but we'll get to that game a little bit later. But let's move on to the big one. I think this is a big one. There's a couple very good matchups, but Florida's at Tennessee, and Tennessee hasn't beaten Florida since, I guess, Ronald Reagan was president, from what I hear. It's been a while, but now that was one of the first lines, guys, that really caught my eye, with Tennessee a double-digit favorite over the Gators. And right away, it leaned me towards Tennessee. But I can tell you right now, that one of my premium bets to the clients is the Florida Gators plus the 11.5. Maybe down to 11 now, but still, I think that's too many. If you have double-digit favorites that are ranked better in the AP poll than their opponent, who is also ranked in the poll, and with a game total of at least 60 points, which means it's going to be volatile in the scoreboard, it's going to be up and down the field, the home favorite does win 51-17 record straight up. That's 5%, but a money losing 31-36 with one push against the spread. Granted, it's only 54% fading these double digits, but I'll give you the nuts and bolts of what my model says. So they're favored by 10.5 or 11. Total of 62. That basically is a 36-25 final score. So there's a high probability from the models that the Gators will score at least 27 in this game. So betting team total here is also a pretty good bet on the Gators, in my opinion. So the model's also expecting the Gators to have the same or fewer turnovers. The Gators are 86-4 straight up for 96% wins, 62-23 against the spread for 73% winning best when scoring 27 or more. and having the same or fewer turnovers than the opponent in games played the last 10 seasons. The Gators are also 9-2 straight up. 9-1 against the spread for winning when priced as an underdog, scoring 27 or more, and having the same or fewer turnovers in games played over the last 10 seasons. I guess I'm on the Gators, but you're free to tear holes into it, Jesse Schule.
I would have loved to have backed Tennessee here, but I would have had them as a touchdown favorite. I mean, double digits is like you say, it's a shocker as soon as you see it, and especially given the history between the two teams. And as bad as Florida looked last week, you can never bet against a team just because they didn't look good last week. I mean, I like Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins this game. But yeah, there's no way I could jump on. They're just overpriced. Even if you like them, even if you're a big Tennessee guy, even if you think they're going to win by 2 touchdowns, it's still overpriced because why should you be asked to cover over 10 points? I think Florida. It's Florida or nothing if you're betting on this game.
Well, I agree. Chad, what do you have to add to this?
I'm a little concerned because I agree too. So I think we're 2 for 2 on all 3 of us agreeing on these first 2 games that we've called out. But I actually placed a bet on the Florida money line. I got it at plus 260, and also Florida plus 10.5 at Tennessee. Going on the road, it's not going to be easy. It's not like playing in the swamp. But yeah, I mean, I've watched this series for so long as an SEC fan, and there's something about this sort of mental stranglehold that Florida seems to have on the Tennessee faithful, and I think it seeps into the program. And I mean, because I've witnessed this as an LSU fan with Alabama, where there was a stretch there where we couldn't beat Alabama to save our lives, and it started to sort of be this thing where even if you had a lead late in the fourth quarter, you still were just kind of looking over your shoulder like, all right, where's the miraculous Saban comeback going to come from? And I think that in a similar way, even though it's new coaches, this isn't Steve Spurrier and Phil Fulmer anymore, it still has there's a little bit of that, I think, ghost that they have to exercise from their system to really get over the hump. I like Florida in this game, and until I see something that proves to me that either of these 2 teams can stop the opposition from scoring, I kind of like this over as well. I think both of these programs have reoriented themselves more towards offense over the last couple of seasons and recruiting cycles, and so I think this could very easily be one of those games that we've seen it before. It starts off a little slow. It may be 7-3 at the end of the first quarter, and that's when you take the John Ryan strategy of seeing that over under drop to an attractive level, or maybe playing up to this 60+ point level, but getting a better return on your investment for it, and dropping some money in there, because I think this is one of those that once these teams feel each other out and they start trading blows, I think this number could ratchet up really quickly, and you're going to want to be in on that over. If you like it, you're going to want to be on it before halftime, because after halftime, that's when I think the haymakers are going to start being traded.
Oh, I can't agree more with that scenario. It just feels like a 35-31 game.
Mm-hmm.
Or 38-35,
or worse, yeah,
possibly overtime. It doesn't feel like a Tennessee blowout. It right. Really doesn't kind of go that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Jesse,
oh no,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say if you wanted to do any kind of quick parlay or anything, like I would take or maybe not a parlay, but if you wanted to take two quick easy bets, it would be Florida plus the points and the over. And I think you're going to be liking that, especially if, to your point, if this game goes into overtime, you are golden because you automatically win the spread, and you're just hoping that they trade blows for a couple of overtimes before they have to go to 2-point conversions. So,
Yep, I like that strategy a lot. You can take it one step further within game. You could look for Florida at 16.5 and then take 7 off the total and look for that and do 2 separate legs. You can, I think you can still do those 2-legged parlays, can't you? Where it's like if then, like if I win the first one, I pick the second one. You can pick the second one before the first one's over. I think you can. That's actually a good question that I just asked myself. You could do that. That would be the strategy. Or if you can't do the parlay, then just do the 2 pieces. Another game that I was looking at here that I'm not on, but interested to share your wisdom on this game is number 17 Baylor on the road at Iowa State at Jack Trice Stadium. Hard place to play. Iowa State is a 2.5-point favorite, and I'm wondering why. Baylor's ground game, I just don't see Iowa State being able to contain it, but it's not a strong enough angle. My models don't have anything on it. But I think, if I had to bet this game, I'd be on Baylor. And let's start with Jesse, see what he has.
Yeah, this is a game that I was very close to pulling the trigger on. Of course, Iowa State got that win over Iowa, which at the time seemed like a big deal, but the way Iowa's playing, maybe less so now. Of course, Baylor went toe-to-toe with BYU and Provo. I was really impressed with Baylor in that game. And yeah, I would lean toward Baylor. Baylor did beat them last year. They did lose Breece Hall and Brock Purdy, and they've managed to put together a pretty solid team, or pretty competitive with losing all that talent. So I'm not as familiar with the guys they've brought in, but the guys they brought in have not been tested against the likes of a Baylor defense and the coaching of Dave Aranda. This is a tough test for them. If I felt like gambling, I'd gamble with Baylor, but because I'm not as familiar with the new players at Iowa State, I stayed off of this one.
Good stuff. Chad, what do you have for us on this?
all right, sorry, I'm trying to unmute
right.
my microphone. The dogs were going nuts again. There's someone outside doing lawn work, and so they're just going nuts outside the window. Yeah, so I'm actually on this game. This is one I'm glad you brought it up, because this is one of the ones that I actually wanted to bring up, because I too like Baylor in this game. Now, full disclosure, I liked Baylor 2 weeks ago at BYU going into Provo, and we saw how that worked out. Now, that game went into overtime, and I still kind of feel vindicated a little bit in picking them, because they were dogs in that game as well. And so I have this little bone to pick with how the odds making and everything goes. I have this wishful thinking, the same way I used to wish for a college football playoff system. Wishfully, I wish that the bettors would, or that the odds makers would make it to where if a game goes into overtime, it's an automatic cover for the dog, because you got to the finish line tied, and so that's just my little, or at least it's an automatic push. But anyway, I digress. I won't be salty about my pick of Baylor on the road in that game. I like Baylor a lot in this game, but the thing I like possibly more, so I picked them with the money line and then a separate bet with the plus 2.5. So I got plus 120 and plus 2.5. But I think what I like more than anything in this game, these are two very, very historically, and even especially this year, as you've seen, defensive-minded programs. I like the under in this game. I don't understand why it's at 45. I remember not that long ago, Iowa State was 10-7. It was 2 weeks ago. And Baylor, Dave Aranda, he's definitely going to do everything he can to keep this thing a slugfest, keep it in the trenches. And I think you could see some very long, protracted, ground and pound type of possessions that keep this thing in that 20-17, 17-13, that sort of range. So that's where my money would be, is on. And I haven't placed that over under bet yet, but I think this one plays well into that strategy of drop 50% pre-flop and then see how the game opens up. And then if it starts off sluggish and slow, just let your money ride. Don't try to double down on that, because the odds are going to be against you at that point. But if somebody jumps out to a couple of quick scores, I think you could maybe double down on that and get better money for your money, and you could have this thing. They could slam the brakes on this thing real quick. If it's 10-7 at the end of the first quarter, you could see maybe 2 scores the rest of the game, and I wouldn't be surprised at that at all.
Sounds like a good setup for a side total parlay or side total teaser too, with taking Baylor plus the points, getting that up to 9 or 9.5, and adding 6 points to the total.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's not a bad idea.
I like that a lot. That's good. 7 o'clock tonight, we have another similar matchup. Number 10 Arkansas on the road at Texas A&M, who just 2 weeks ago was, or 3 weeks ago, was number 6 in the nation. Texas A&M is a meager 2-point favorite. Has the market overreacted to Texas A&M's quality of play to date? And is there an opportunity then to bet on them? Or is this more misery for Texas A&M fans and their beloved coach? We'll start with Jesse.
Well, I had Texas A&M last week, and I got lucky. Might surprise you that I got lucky last week. I've been getting lucky an awful lot lately. But yeah, I wasn't
now.
I wasn't impressed with the Aggies offense last week. I wasn't impressed with Max Johnson. He comes out, completes 10 of 20 passes, a lot of stalled drives. I wasn't impressed with the coaching. They got me my money last week. There's no way I'd be on them this week. Arkansas scares me a bit because, their defense seems to have holes in it. But I can trust Arkansas. I think I can trust Arkansas to at least score. So the way I see this game unfolding is Arkansas is going to put points on the board. Can they stop the Aggies? Can the Aggies get out of their own way is probably a better question. And based on what we've seen so far, it's tough to see that happening. I'd have to lean toward Arkansas with this one.
Yeah, and it feels like Arkansas on the over, I guess. What do you have for us, Chad?
So I'm looking at this from a little bit of a different angle. So 2 things. Texas A&M gets a big receiver back who's on suspension for the first 3 weeks. So that's going to be big. Another weapon for Max Johnson. I think he's been playing a little bit better than I think maybe people expected, but I think they definitely had to make a change at quarterback, because that was I think where some of their trouble was coming from. But I think if I look at it strictly on a macro level, and I look at what these 2 teams have coming up, Texas A&M has Mississippi State next week, and then Alabama. Arkansas has this game, and then Alabama. And I think that as I've watched, and you see this in every conference, whether it's the Big Ten and you've got Michigan or Ohio State next week, or it's the ACC and you've got Clemson, or back in the day Florida State on your schedule next week. I think that it can be very easy for a team like Arkansas that's unproven. This program has not done much. They do not have this championship pedigree where they can go on the road and just take care of business like it's a business trip. They have not proven that. They do a lot of what they do by playing off energy and making big plays. And I think when you look at how they score and how dynamic they are offensively, I get it. Like it makes sense to really like what they do. But I think they've been reading a lot of their own press clippings lately. I think there's a lot of hype around this team as being a potential contender to knock off Alabama next week. And I think they're looking at Texas A&M across the field, and they're still laughing. They're still kind of chuckling about what happened to them 2 weeks ago with Appalachian State. And I think they come into this a little overconfident. And you got to go into College Station, and it's not or no, they're playing at AT&T. They're not playing in College Station. They're playing at
That's right.
in Arlington,
Here,
aren't they? Yeah. So it's
Arlington. Yep.
it's maybe it's not as hostile of an environment, but it's still going to be. This is more neutral site than a road game necessarily. But I feel like this one looks like Texas A&M is playing with a chip on their shoulder after what happened, because they know they don't have any more mulligans left. And I think Arkansas is coming into this thing feeling like they're going to step over Texas A&M on the way to the big matchup next week with Alabama. And I've seen it so many times where you come in and you're looking ahead to that game next week, and next thing you know, you're staring a 10-point loss in the face. And now you have to go play Alabama next week after embarrassing yourselves. So I like Texas A&M in this game. At the very least, I like them minus that 2.5, whatever you can get. But I even dropped a little bit on the money line on this one because it was. Let's see, were they? Minus 125. It's not that bad. So they're still the favorite in this game. Yeah. So minus 125 for the money line. That way I don't have to worry about a last second field goal and they win by 1, and I'm like, oh dang, I wish I'd have played the money line. Like, no, it's worth it to just go there. But I don't know how I feel about the over under on this one. I think this could go either way. This could get ugly slugfest style, or these two teams could just open it up and go nuts on each other. And I'd stay away from the over under if it were me.
Yeah,
I can't call it.
The last matchup was 20-10 Arkansas, and then back in 2020 it was 42-31.
There you go.
That's
See what I mean?
Big disparity.
Uh-huh.
So let's take a look at another one here. Ohio State, number 3, taking on Wisconsin. And there's been a lot of talk about the Badgers again this year, being disrespected and this thing and the other thing. And Ohio State is one of the top teams, if not the team that will meet Georgia down the road probably, or Alabama. And Ohio State is much, much deeper in talent, much, much deeper in the the roster than any team in the Big Ten, let alone the whole nation. And they're only 19.5-point favorites. They were, I guess, 18.5 earlier in the week.
Tonight, you get pumped for your meeting.
Well,
Your
that's
go-to
interesting.
ragtag group of misfits somehow
does that
wins
come
it all
from now?
movie.
Remember, guys, glory lasts forever.
What the
Bottle that comes, Mike.
there? Sorry about that. It was a ESPN ad. A little shout out for their ad, I guess. It was La Quinta Hotels. So the Ohio State Buckeyes, I think, pretty much blow them off the field. I kind of like the Ohio State first half, so that if it is a blowout early, you don't run the risk of getting that backdoor cover. Yeah. So let's start with you, Chad, on this one and what you think.
Yeah, as you started talking, I was thinking, oh shoot, is this your 17+ point dog upset? But no, I don't think so. I don't think it is. I think the talent is overwhelming, and I think your point is well made that this could be one of those games where I haven't looked to see who Ohio State has coming up on their schedule, but to your point about that backdoor cover, if they're up 31-7 in the third quarter, they could very easily just say, you know what, let's. I know they got Rutgers coming up, so it's not anything to be super concerned about. But you're trying to get guys playing time. You're trying to rest your starters and not get anybody banged up or anything like that. Most of the time, big time college football, you're playing your starters until 7 or 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, regardless of the score anyway. But I could see in that last 7 or 8 minutes, if it's a big spread, maybe 25, 30 points, I could see Wisconsin maybe sneaking a couple of scores in late against some second, third team guys. So yeah, I think playing that first half line is the way to go, and that way you kind of ice it, because I think Ohio State should come out and want to put this one to bed early.
I would think, and it's primetime TV too.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse, what do you agree or disagree with this one? Probably hard to disagree.
Well,
This
isn't a game that really. It's not a game that really interests me. I don't want to be on it, but money's come in on Ohio State since the line came out. I don't see a lot of value if you like Ohio State.
Right.
Certainly, history favors the underdog here. We've seen Wisconsin go toe-to-toe with Ohio State in the past, and they've always been outmanned and outgunned. I mean, Ohio State's always been the favorite with superior talent. And then you look at the Notre Dame game. I know that was week 1, and I know that Ohio State hadn't worked out the kinks yet, but did Notre Dame provide a blueprint for how to play as an underdog, how to stay in the game against Ohio State? And if Wisconsin comes in with the right game plan, they appear to be the kind of team that might be able to duplicate that to me. So if I was going to do anything, I'd probably take the points.
I like that.
To your point about Notre Dame, I think Ohio State, showed up a little flat, like a lot flat. They did run 69 plays to Notre Dame's 48. They still gained 172 on the ground, 223 passing as I'm looking at it. And that's been Ohio State's Achilles heel, is that they really are a team that can only beat themselves. And they almost did that in the opening game against Notre Dame. But since it's hard to, take anything away from Arkansas State or, the 77-21 win last week against Toledo, which covered that 31-point spread. But I just see what you said, Jesse. Wisconsin just doesn't have the firepower to go, toe to toe in the middle of the ring and expect to be still standing after the third round. And of course we could be dead wrong. Maybe this is one of those dogs that.
But they never have had the firepower, though. I mean, over the in the last decade, you look at the last 10 meetings, and half of them have been within single digits. Is that not correct? But Ohio State's been, far and away the better team every year, and somehow Wisconsin has managed to, give them a run for their money on a few occasions.
Well, Coach Christ is 2-11 against the spread, facing excellent passing teams that are averaging 8.5 or more passing yards per attempt on the season. And Ryan Day's 11-3, coming off a home win of 17 or more points. Chad, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think another thing that goes into some of that stuff when we look at the history of these is, are we talking about playing, at Ohio State? Are we talking about playing, is this a game, or are these games in Columbus and in prime time? Because like all of these things that, sometimes we can look at these past records, at the history of some of these matchups, and, road versus home plays a big role in it, but also like the time of the game. Like I've seen teams come out flat for these noon starts all the time. And you go to prime time and you're on ABC and everybody's watching, and CJ Stroud is trying to put his Heisman numbers up. I could see it. I could see it get ugly. I like Jesse's take though on just finding a way to ugly this thing up. Drag it down to the back alley and make it a bare knuckle fight. I kind of think you're onto something that. You got to have the firepower to be able to do that. You got to weigh more than 115 pounds to do any damage to a juggernaut like Ohio State. So I think this is, Jesse probably said the best take on this whole game when he said, "I don't like this game. I don't want to play it." And I kind of feel the same way. Like I didn't put any money on this one, and I'm not planning on it. So, but when we bring these games up and we talk about them, I feel compelled to at least give what I think an angle would be to where I see the path for either team. But I would tend towards Ohio State in this one, but I'm not putting any money on it.
Well, John's take on the first half was a good one too. I mean,
Yeah.
if you do like them, try to avoid that backdoor cover. They have to start. They probably have to start well anyways to cover a 19.5 point spread. So,
Right.
I mean, if I was gonna look at Ohio State, I
Over
would
Ohio
go
State
first half.
team total might be a good look too. I just ran a couple of numbers here. I think Ohio State, the line of 57 and the 19-point spread that implies that Ohio State's going to score 38.
Yep.
And my model has a slight probability leaning towards that they score 35 or more. Now check this out. Since 1992, Wisconsin 1-17 against the number when allowing 35 or more points. And conversely, looking at Ohio State here, where did that go here? They are 35-16 against the number when scoring 35 or more, and they do it an awful lot. And they also give up points too, because that offense scores so quickly that defense, as we saw last year, gets really, really fatigued and pretty quick. And that also adds fuel to my fire about I don't want to get backdoored on this because the defense is tired.
Right.
That just would be insane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, enough on this one. Is there any specific game you want to mention, Jesse Schule, on the show before we hit the NFL here?
Well, there is a game that I've been giving out on a few shows lately, and I have a free pick on Northwestern today. They are hosting Miami of Ohio. And of course, we all know that Northwestern's coming off back-to-back losses after beating Nebraska in Ireland. And of course, not a lot of people put any value on that win over Nebraska now because Nebraska's been so bad. But let's remember, both these teams flew overseas to play a game and then flew back stateside. That probably doesn't help you the following week, maybe even for 2 weeks. What I found interesting looking at Northwestern, though, was their game against Duke. And one of the reasons why their value is so low is they lost that follow-up game to Duke. But they gained over 500 yards of offense in that game. Ryan Helinski threw for, I can't remember how many yards, but 350, 400 yards, something along those lines. And but they turned the ball over 3 times. And really, the last 2 weeks, they've turned the ball over 7 times, which, you look at the games they've lost, that's basically the reason right there is they lost the turnover battle. And we all know that turnovers aren't something that happen every week. This is something that is a bit of a freak of nature thing. Sometimes certain teams are more prone to turnovers than others, but you can never count on a team turning the ball over 3 or 4 times a game. And now they've got a home game against a MAC team. They're favored by a touchdown. I've really liked the way Helinski's looked at quarterback. I like the running back, Evan Hull. Of course, Pat Fitzgerald's had plenty of success as a coach. This looks like a good spot to back Northwestern in a get-right game. So that's a game that I really like today.
Yeah, I thought too initially that Northwestern was definitely cheap. Chad, what do you have to add, if anything, on this game?
Yeah, I haven't looked at this one, to be perfectly honest. So I'm gonna stay away from it. Yeah. I appreciate the takes, but shout out Ben Roethlisberger. He in Miami, Ohio, came and took LSU down way back when. That was a fun night. Not so much, but yeah, that's I'm gonna defer to you guys on that.
Fair enough. There is one game I'm looking at tonight, and I know I'm going to get egg on my face by doing this because this will be probably like the 5th time this week I'm being on a show or hosting a show that I mentioned it. And it's the Wyoming Cowboys going up against BYU. BYU getting shellacked last week by the Oregon Ducks. And it's backed by a really incredible betting angle where a team that's given up 17 or fewer points in the past 2 games, which is Wyoming, is now facing a team that scored 17 or fewer in their previous game. So I kind of call it the 17-17 system, and I guess you can see why. I guess that's probably a pretty stupid name for it, 17-17, and that doesn't even sound like a good restaurant. But anyway, that hits in the high 60s against the spread. But better yet, the road dog in that situation is pretty darn good, almost 500 straight up. And they're getting 21 and a half. It was 22 and a half earlier in the week. So I have gone out on the limb and said that this is a little bit more than a sprinkle on the money line. It might be 3 pizzas, maybe as many as 5 pizzas. If I had Jesse Schule's money, I'd probably put at least $10 on it.
Man, you got cheap pizzas.
Well, yeah. Well, he's in Thailand, so I can't imagine it would cost more than that right now with the way the currency markets were this past week. But talk about digression. But yeah, that angle really has stuck with me this week, and I don't hype anything, but I've been talking about it enough that I'm almost afraid that BYU is going to blow them out now. But that's how we think as pros. You know, we're not. We may come across being a little confident once in a while, but internally there's a battle going on, and that segues into one topic I do want to talk about with Jesse and Chad here. Is that we've been running hot, and Jesse, I don't know where you are right now, but I was 14-2 with 1 push last week, NFL and college football. It was a week where I had the Jets and called the upset, and we know now that there's been 2,226 NFL football games with a team that had a 13-point lead with less than 2 minutes to go that lost. 2,226 games, and lo and behold, it was the Jets who did it, who have nothing good ever happens to them. But when it happens, you know that it's your day, and you're going to be the dog and not the fire hydrant. And what I want to talk about, Jesse, is first tell me where you're at on your streak here, and then how do you not let that win streak impact you into constantly thinking, oh man, this week I'm due to regress. This week, oh my God, how am I going to replicate that again? Because I think that's pretty key to, the new bettor, because after a big week, it's human nature. You can get full of yourself and think that, oh my God, I have this figured out. This is easy. Well, then if you think that once, I can promise you probably won't think it again, because the betting gods hear it. And they basically rip your face off the following week, and then, oh my God, I'm really not that good. But seriously, how do you approach the week after the couple of weeks that you have had?
Well, John, I don't know if you can tell by looking at me, but I'm no spring chicken. I've been around the block a few times, done this long enough to know.
I've seen that video, and that's enough.
You can't let your ego get out of control. You can't change the way you do things. You have to have the same approach week in, week out. You lose big, you can't get down on yourself. You win big, you can't get too high on yourself. Obviously, in the nature of our business, my streak is at 24-4 right now combined for college and pro football. Wow. That's 10-1 with NFL, 14-3 with college football, and those are that you can see that's not a lot of games, right? A lot of guys in my business would have played twice as many games as I've played. I had 3 college games last Saturday, 3 pro games last Sunday, won all 6 of them, and dressed up in a silly outfit, went on Twitter, turned myself into a bit of a clown, and I'm really hoping I get to do it again this weekend. But I guess my approach is I got 3 college games on Saturday, 3 pro games on Sunday. Hopefully I don't go 0 for 3, but I think I can withstand a 1 for 2 weekend if I have to go through that. And you mentioned the Jets and me being on that game and being quite lucky. There were 2 games that were pretty incredible last week. There was the Dolphins as well, and I was on them too, of course. In addition to having, I had Tennessee in overtime against Pitt. I had Houston in overtime against UTSA. Then UTSA in overtime the next week against Army, and then the game that Chad was involved in, the BYU game, BYU -3.5, twice field goals inside 30 yards to walk it off and win by 3, and missed 2 of them. Sorry, Chad, but that's potentially the worst bad beat you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Until Thursday Night Football,
they would miss 2 field goals exact. Didn't you say that on the show? You said that the 2 field goals missed. The point is, I'm being sarcastic, is that there's most of the time you cannot predict what goes on. Like the best example for me is I'm 18-5 in Super Bowls, and that does, make me not a spring chicken. And as we know, some of those dramatic finishes, no research in the world, no predictive model in the world could have forecast what happened when Seattle forgot that they had a running back at the 1-yard line, and the a 3 halftime lead, and it goes as it goes. But when we're hot like this, it does mean that you're seeing the card well, I think. And at the end of the day, we bet numbers, and that's one thing I was talking about on Chad's show earlier the week, that people get too emotional with their own home team. Like if you're an Eagles fan and they lose tomorrow to Washington, hypothetically speaking, they're going to be, I'm never betting those SOBs ever again. They screwed me. How dare Jalen Hurts throw an interception in the fourth quarter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can't do that if you want to come back the next week and win some money. You're looking at a name of a team with no emotion, and it takes a while to learn how to do that. Yeah. Chad, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, no,
you're doing pretty well yourself right now. Maybe not 24-4.
Yeah,
but
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not playing that many games. I'm identifying some games that I look at. I'm like, I think that it's either way overpriced or way underpriced, and I'm trying to lean there. And I'm also looking for some of these patterns that I see that set up for, overhyping or underhyping different scenarios. And I just try to stay in my lane and stay there. I think where I get myself in trouble is I feel like I have to make a decision on a bunch of games that I don't really feel I have a real good read on them. And so I've been doing better at staying away from that. But I will say this, like to your point, yeah, this game can humble you very, very quickly. So the important thing is, I throw back to rounders, like you can either throw all your money in the pot and try to go after Teddy KGB, and get your face ripped off because you think you got it, and you put it all in there when you think you got it, and then you don't got it. Or you could do like grandma, and you can just grind it out on your ass and just make a living by. And I'm not even saying that necessarily we're all out here making a living on this, but you can stack some cash. Slow and steady wins the race. So no matter how good of a streak you're on, in no way should you ever think that you are in a position to throw more than your, that's why you're saying is so apropos. Bet with your head and not over it, because that's what I think people get themselves in trouble is you go 7-0 in a weekend. And so Monday night's coming up and you say, I'm on a streak. I'm putting all my winnings on that game tonight. And I'm going to make a huge pile of money. And then you lose it all because you didn't get that one right. So don't get ahead of yourself and don't go over your head. Yeah.
So true. Let's quickly move over to the NFL. We won't do every game here just because of time. I'm going to be on the RotoWire show at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with one of the people in this world that I'm glad I have recently met. His name's Jim Coventry. He is the director of NFL over there. And if you guys and gals out there do DFS, you need to listen to him. We're going to break down 2 NFL games as well, but it's mainly going to be his prop bets that he has already booked. And I can't say enough about the intelligence that this guy brings to the table, and it's all, of course, free. So that's what's going on for me coming up. But anyway, in the NFL, I did mention the Washington Commanders, which I have sometimes slipped up, Jesse and Chad, and said Commodes. And I have to correct myself, but at least I'm not saying the former mascot and getting myself in deeper trouble. But seriously, I don't know what we can call mascots anymore or what is a good name or a bad name. But this matchup is really intriguing. And it's the Eagles going on the road to face literally Darth Vader in Carson Wentz. It really feels like the evil empire against the lily white eagles now. And you guys know I do that Twitter sentiment where I run my Python app on it. Goes through 2,500 tweets on each official hashtag of each NFL team. And the swing in the last 3 weeks on the Eagles dwarfs the previous all-time most largest swing. So we were 3 weeks ago, the sentiment was Eagles will be lucky to be 500. Maybe they'll, because they play in the NFC East, they might sneak in as a wild card. Now it's gone to Super Bowl. That Jalen Hurts is the MVP, which you guys knew I bet at 40-1 with pizza money. And it's crazy. And now you have Carson Wentz. What are the top 3 quarterbacks in the league right now? We have Tua, Wentz, and Joe Flacco. And we all 3 knew that was going to happen. Of course we didn't. But it's just, that's the NFL. You know, I never thought in a million years any of those names would be in the top 3. And I don't think anybody else would have. But that's kind of how the NFL goes. And I do think the Eagles are vulnerable this week. I have not officially gone to the window in this game, but just quickly give your thoughts on this game, Chad, and then we'll move over to Jesse, and then each one of you guys then will do a game that you do like, and I'll do the same, and then we'll send everybody on their way.
Well, you know how I feel about road favorites, favored by a touchdown in division games. It's not a good setup. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I look at things like this and I just say, you know what? This is, to your point, like that hype wagon, that hype train is heavy. This thing looks a lot like some of the other stuff that we talked about this in week 1 with the Saints and Atlanta. And I really thought Atlanta should have upset the Saints in that game. And that's what I felt going into it. And I felt very vindicated until like the last 5 minutes of the game when the Saints found a way to come back and squeak it out. And Atlanta missed a field goal that would have won it late. But I feel like this looks very similar to that. It looks like one of those games where Philadelphia is being hyped because they beat the Lions and the Vikings. And they're being hyped as though they went out and took on 2 of the top 5 teams in the NFL and handed them their asses. And that's not the case. It's you're getting a lot of early season hype. And I've often said this too, like the NFL is somewhat unique, unlike college football. College football, you just about have to go undefeated to win the national championship. So you see a lot of, just like wire to wire type runs by teams. There are very few instances where you see a team start off, looking ugly, 0-1, 1-2, or anything like that. And I don't think it's ever happened where they go on and win the whole thing. In the NFL, though, we see it all the time where I've often said there are like 3 or 4 little mini seasons inside each NFL season. Week 1 through 4, you get a certain idea of teams. And then by week 5 through 8, you get shown who the imposters were from that first 4 weeks and who the real ones are from that first 4 weeks. But then you also see that like maybe some of these teams that started off 2-2, they actually go on a run, win 6 in a row or 6 out of 7. So I could very easily see Philadelphia coming back to earth. And yeah, like I think that there's a lot of dirt being thrown on the Commanders' grave. I think there's a lot of people making fun of the name, and they're still just kind of looking at them. They've been a joke for a while now, and they're acting like these guys aren't NFL players playing for them, and they're playing at home. So it's I think it's worth at least taking the spread, taking those points, and I would even throw a little bit on the money line and hope for that upset.
Yeah, I think it's one that you could almost play as a middle. I just have my gut feeling tells me that Washington will come out with a statement, maybe score in the first drive, and then you'll get the Eagles at maybe as close to pick 'em or even a dog during the first half, and then the Eagles come back, and then you can decide whether you're going to ride that or are you going to try to, get a good number like between 4 and 7 point margin and play around with it a little bit like that? But Jesse, do you think the Commanders are for real, and do they have a chance to knock off these Eagles that are considered now by many major media outlets to be the premier team in the NFC? And I think they've forgotten that there's a guy named Tom Brady down in Florida. I think they forgot that Aaron Rodgers is in Wisconsin. And then we have this Garoppolo guy in a perfect opportunity to, reinvigorate his career with some franchise I've never heard of called the 49ers. But, the Eagles are it, man. What do you think?
You didn't even mention the Buffalo Bills.
We're talking about NFC. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's who
Oh,
the Eagles
you just mean I see. We're
I was just
talking
doing
about
that.
the conference. Okay. Yeah, no, well, it's clear that the Eagles are overrated. You see the line movement. I mean, didn't this open at 3.5 and get bet all the way up to the touchdown? So, I'm not gonna be on the wrong side of that. There's no doubt about that. But do I think that Washington's for real? Not really. I mean, I'm not a Carson Wentz fan. I don't like Wentz. Ron Rivera, I'm not sure that he's got his ducks in a row there. And no, I expect Washington to struggle. But yeah, it's a lot of points. They are the home team. I wouldn't want to lay the 6.5 here.
Yeah, we all agree here. So I guess I'd should tell the audience that it's going to be 40-6 Eagles. No, seriously, I'm only talking like that because of like we were talking about it. Coming off a week of 14-2 is hard to think that what you're saying is do the opposite week, but it really isn't fair to even say that.
Mm-hmm.
When you're running hot, and you run hot till you're out of gas, and then you grind out a few weeks of 2 games under 500 or 2 games over, and you get hot again. You just don't know when
I
that
think
hot
when you're
streak's
seeing the board really well after a big winning, when you're on a big winning streak and you're seeing the board really well, it allows you to win with teams and realize that you got lucky, and then be able to, instead of falling in love with that team and backing them the next week, you find a reason to go against them, and it allows you to be more objective than you would be if you were just losing.
I can speak from personal experience with that. I did that very thing I called Texas A&M losing to Appalachian State, flipped and turned around and picked Texas A&M minus the points against Miami last week, and won both of those bets. I did the same thing week 1. I called Seattle beating Denver on Monday Night Football, and then turned around and picked against Seattle, and I picked San Francisco minus the points and won that bet too. So like seeing why you won and recognizing that there's a reason why you won, and then recognizing when that script flips in the opposite direction, and not getting married to a team, I think is a big part of it. And like you said, when you see the board, when you're seeing the board well, you can see when you're when there's hype that isn't deserved, isn't justified, and you can typically bet against that. And that's where you'll, even if you don't win all your bets, if you're putting better money after good pot odds, you're going to come out better in the end anyway, even if you don't win the bets, because you're not, I think to put the money on Philadelphia in this game is you're asking for it. You're asking to have your money taken from you. And if you do something with a money line bet, a small money line bet on Washington, you're already going into it expecting to lose in a certain way, and knowing that you're with that plus 250 or whatever it is, that you're kind of hoping against hope that you win a big flip. And that's why you don't put a huge bet on it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's being disciplined and making sure that you don't fall for the hype, because I think that's a lot of times where we can get in trouble, is we either follow our own hype and we get ahead of ourselves, or we fall for the stuff that everybody else is falling for, and we fall for the traps.
See something that other people aren't seeing.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah. So, shout out to Don Buster, who comes on the NFL show that I host with Rocky Atkinson on what day is that? Thursday mornings. We do it super early, like 8 a.m. And then sometimes it's recorded live, sometimes it's not. But guess what, man? He's 10-0 in the Circa. And if you don't know what the Circa is, it's the biggest. It's like the World Series of poker for NFL football. And anytime anybody goes 5-0 in a given week, that's something to write home about. Let alone back-to-back weeks, which I've never done that in the Circa. I've never had back-to-back 5-0 weeks. I've had 2 or 3 or 4 5-0 weeks, but never back-to-back. It's usually 5-0 and then 2-3, 3-2. But you go 3-2 every single week in that contest, you're smelling some money. You might be outside cashing, but you get up into that low to mid 60% level for the season, and that's pretty. It's very hard to do, as you guys know, because you have to pick 5 sides every single week. You get those bye weeks where there's 8 teams not playing, or whatever it is, 6 teams not playing, and you have games that you have no clue really to what to do with them. And I generally go in those situations where I don't have anything from my models. I'll actually pick the team that looks ugliest, and that usually works out pretty good. But I just wanted to mention that for Don Buster too, because that's just absolutely amazing. I know he's having a lot of fun with it too. But talk about pressure going into it.
To think that I go 3-0 on a Saturday, dress up in a clown outfit, and make a spectacle of myself. He's 10-0 in the Circuit contest, and I haven't even heard about it yet.
Yeah, well, I don't think he has those yellow outfits. I don't think he's that type of person.
Well, he better get himself. If I was 10-0 in the Circuit contest, I would be letting people know about it. Let me tell you.
I can only imagine. Thank God that hasn't happened.
Well, I did start the season 10-0. My first loss was Monday night. I had the Vikings, which was a terrible pick. In hindsight, I can say I learned my lesson there. That was just a bad pick. It was a Monday night game. If that was a Sunday game, there's no way I would have touched that. I probably should have just stayed away.
Yeah, I was on the Eagles, of course. One of us had to win. Somebody tweeted that out that we were on opposite sides. But usually we're not too much opposite. We're either not on the game or we're on the same team.
Unless it's a Philadelphia-based team that's playing, and we tend to be opposite on those from time to time.
Yeah, I had Chad knows this too. I had a prop bet on Devontae Smith. It was over 3.5 was the regular line, -110 in terms of over 3.5 receptions. But BetMGM sometimes gives out player props that go 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, all the way up. And he had 4 targets in week 1, no receptions, and JB Brown was it. So it seemed pretty obvious that the offensive scheme was going to be more balanced at least. But I forget what it was. It plus 700, I think.
Wow.
Plus 600, over 7.5 receptions. And, those are the ones you look for those that are new to this thing.
Yeah,
and if it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit.
Right.
But if you find them enough during the course of the season, you're going to be okay.
That's what AG will do. Yeah, AG will do that sometimes with with Steph Curry, where he'll if Curry goes like 2 for 11 one night, he hunts for that plus 5.5, 5.5 plus, and the number is crazy. It's like plus 350 or plus 400 or something like that on that number, and he'll go for it because what he's looking for is regression in the positive direction with that. So it's sometimes, especially with a guy like Devontae Smith, where they know that weapon has to be used. And so it makes so much more sense to take a swing at that. And like you said, you don't have to put a whole lot of money on it at plus 600, plus 700 to do really well. and for that to kind of, help your whole weekend out. So, yep.
Well, I'll start the final round here. I'm offering my show pick here. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions and take them plus the 6, and also to sprinkle up, a tenth. If you're betting $100 a game, take the Lions and then add 10 more to the $10 more bucks to the money line. That's a pizza money bet. Is of $10 based on the 100. So it should never be a pizza money bet. Should never be more than 10% of your normal bet size, in my humble opinion. But we're going to bet on road dogs, 3.5 to 9.5 points. Our dog is scoring 30 or more points per game. The game is a divisional matchup. Those dogs have gone 11 and 12 straight up, and that's right there why I like the sprinkle on the money line, because we're looking at plus 250, I think, or maybe even slightly higher than that. So that's a great return. It's gone 16 and 7 against the spread, 70% winning bets, and the under is 14 and 7 for 67% winning bets. I'm not brave enough to do a parlay with the money line and the under, but it's there for people that really like it more than I do. And it wouldn't be fair if I didn't give out an NCAA football system here. I'm going to go back to the Wyoming one so that I ensure that BYU wins tonight. But seriously, bet on teams that allowed 17 or fewer points in 2 previous games, facing an opponent that lost their previous game by 17 or more points. Straight up 268 and 61, 82% winning bets, believe it or not. 197, 125, and 7 pushes, 61% over the last 10 seasons. And don't think that 61% isn't good, because it is when you're talking about 329 picks over the last 10 seasons. So if you like action, this thing is pretty active. However, if our team is the road dog, a winning record, 19 and 16, 54%, 25, 9 and 1 for 74% against the spread the last 10 seasons. I'm on the Wyoming Cowboys. And I certainly will not be surprised if someone tells me tomorrow morning that they won. Let's go to Jesse Schule for his actionable best bet.
Green Bay Packers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs got no receivers left. What's Tom Brady going to do? I'm going to go with Leonard Fournette, anytime touchdown, plus 120. I think they're going to need to get Fournette involved early and often. Look for him to either run one in or catch one.
I love it, Jesse. And before I go any further, written content, and for those that are reading my written content at gambling.com, the Oklahoma K-State game that I put out on that article, I don't like that game anymore. I also don't like Minnesota, Michigan State that I put in that article. So you go neutral on them. So I just wanted to get that out there, that, that's another thing that us pros do, is that we can say one day or even 5 minutes ago that I liked Wyoming, or I liked XYZ team, or I liked Devontae Smith, but our thoughts change. And a lot of times because of who we're talking to, and, in a round table like this, it's easy to back off of a play because you're hearing something that you didn't consider.
Mm-hmm.
And that saves money. It saves money.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those 2 games are stricken off of my written article, but there's plenty of free picks over there. Chad, what's your big deal for the day here or tomorrow?
Yeah, so for Monday night, I actually like the Giants. I've liked the Giants all week to beat the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys, as good as their defense is, I still think that we're riding a little bit of a hype train, where I think people are looking at them based on beating Cincinnati. But I think Cincinnati's just been struggling. They lost to Pittsburgh. My real best bet for this week already happened. It was Thursday night. I had Cleveland plus the points, and I had Cleveland money line, and I also had some stuff with Nick Chubb and Amari Cooper, and hit all that stuff. So that was the one that I gave out earlier in the week, and I don't really feel a lot of these other NFL games. I think there's a lot of stuff to avoid this week, but I do like the Giants in that game. It's down to, the line's down to 1. I think it was 2.5 to open. But for today, I actually like North Carolina minus the 2.5 against Notre Dame.
Attaboy.
Yeah, I don't like Notre Dame. I think, and the other thing too is that's one where if you can look for an opportunity early, North Carolina is going to hang points on Notre Dame. I just don't know when, if they're going to start off, quick, or if they're going to take a minute to get there. So I really like that one. I had some other ones that we didn't get to. I like Appalachian State minus the 7, and I like SMU straight up against TCU. But those are, so I have like this whole, I have all those individual bets, but I put a parlay together of SMU, Baylor plus the 2.5, Florida plus 11, North Carolina straight up, Appalachian State straight up, and then Texas A&M straight up. That was a plus 3170 parlay. So anyway, that's the thing. I threw $5 on that. So I'm looking to hang $200 on it because I got the odds boost from BetMGM where you get so you take those swings when you can. So it's almost plus 4,000. So $5 turns into 205 real quick. So that's one that I like a lot. But that North Carolina Notre Dame game, I'm excited to watch that one because I can't stand Notre Dame, and I think I'm going to be having a happy day today.
I think so too. I share that same sentiment, and we didn't talk about LSU because they're playing
New Mexico. Yeah,
they're going to absolutely destroy. So there's really not much to talk about there.
And I picked Notre Dame to win last week for what it's worth, So like it's this isn't just me being anti Notre Dame. I like to Jesse's point earlier, knowing yourself and then knowing when to pick against your heart is I think one of the keys to doing this. Just kind of having that steady hand where you're not like, and when you feel yourself like wanting something to happen for bias reasons, just stay away from it because that's the best way to get yourself in trouble. When you can't be trusted on an emotional level, don't trust yourself.
Or you keep throwing good money at bad money, you keep betting against the team that you think, they're due to lose.
Right.
I'm going to keep betting. I mean, no worse in baseball can you do that because you could lose 7 or 8 in a row, and for no good reason.
Mm-hmm.
I should remind you that a colleague of ours said at the All-Star break, the best way to make money in the second half was to fade the Orioles blindly in every game.
Yes, and I disagreed with that. If you remember, I'm not saying that I was right, but teams that have the good bullpen based on WHIP do well as dogs, and I didn't understand that. But with
my answer to him was I'm more inclined to take the Orioles on the run line as a dog. Blindly for every single game than I would be to bet against them. And at the time, I had no idea that they would actually be 3 games out of a wild card spot at this point.
Yeah, they've had a great year. But I mean, but we all know, Jesse, that Anthony is a very, very good professional sports bettor.
No, and he's probably really angry with me for continuing to bring that up.
Hey, look, man.
That's why I said his name.
Part of the game.
I'm sure I'll give him plenty to ammo to work with that he can hit me back when I deserve it.
Yeah, part of the game is giving each other shit for making bad bets. Like it's and honestly, like I think sometimes because you guys have probably witnessed it. Like if I'm watching a game, especially like it's a big LSU Alabama, if I'm watching it alone, I get so much more upset if things aren't going the right way than I do if I'm in a group of people and we can just like laugh about it and enjoy it. So like I think sometimes in this community, it helps actually to have guys rib you and give you a hard time and just kind of, because then it makes it fun and it makes it more of like just a camaraderie. Whereas if you were alone and you just had to live with your bad bets yourself, you could probably get on tilt a lot more easily. Whereas with this, you just, it makes it possible to laugh it off when people give you a hard time about making bad bets.
I agree. I'm just doing a quick query for another little shout out to one of our good friends and pals, Jesse. I'm sure Chad knows the name too. Ralph Michaels of Wager Talk.
Okay.
He's the king of TNA. I love
Uh-oh.
saying that because it sounds disgusting. I forget what it really stands for, but TNA is
Trends and angles.
and I think it stands for some other things too, but I'm not really sure about
Yeah.
that. Something to do with medicine. But anyway, teams, NFL teams line between the threes, meaning a 3-point favorite up to a 3-point dog. Coming off a previous loss and a previous ATS loss, going up against a team that won the previous week and also covered the spread the previous week. Since 2018, 36-55 straight up, 34-55 and 2 against the number. So switching that around, you are going to bet on the team that won the previous week and covered the spread over the team that lost and failed to cover the spread in a game that's lined between the threes. That comes out to 63% on the blind, and that's courtesy of Ralph Michaels over at wagertalk.com. So that's a good way to end the show, I think. I have a game of the month going today. I hate hype. I hate propaganda. I hate all that stuff, but this is a doozy. It's in the Big 12, and obviously I like it quite a bit. Jesse, you have anything going on at predictiveplaybook.com?
SEC game of the year.
Ah, ho hum, just another play.
Yeah.
That's a play, guys, that is coming from a guy that is seeing the card like transparently, like he's an X-ray machine, able to look at the game and see the outcome before anybody else does. And that's because he lives in
Well, I'm
Thailand.
12 hours ahead.
Right, and you're already into Sunday, so you already know what happened.
Exactly.
And just so you know, Jesse, I have invited Chad and Adam and a few other guys to join us on predictiveplaybook.com so that they can share their expertise with the world as well. But for now, I think if people go over to predictiveplaybook.com and get your pick for the SEC game of the year and then my Big 12 game of the month, I feel pretty confident that we'll be 2-0 at the end of the day. And if not, then, we make up for it. It's not blowing smoke up somebody's rear end. We actually are giving you reports that you're going to learn a ton from, win or lose. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go. And until next Saturday morning and every day of your life, just bet with your heads and never over it. And may all the wins continue to be yours.